What's up, beautiful people? Today we're going to be checking out a video by Matt Walsh, and this one is titled Pride Month has been going great so far. Let's get to it.
Sign that we may be nearing an end to the national fever dream that began sometime in the past decade, and that soon we'll once again live in a country where you can at least talk about basic facts of life without losing your job or getting dogpiled on social media. Then what happened last week wasn't just encouraging, it was proof that we're well on our way to that destination. That may be hard to believe, but it's true, and there's no denying it now. Last week, for the first time in a very long time, it wasn't the people who understand human biology and the differences between men and women who lost their jobs. It wasn't the people who value freedom of speech who were publicly humiliated. It wasn't the civilized and respectful people who had to lock down their accounts in shame. Instead, for once, the thugs who can't win an argument without threats and coercion were the ones backed into a corner for a change. The premiere of What is a Woman on Twitter proved to be a disastrous moment for these very petty and aggressively stupid authoritarians. As we've told you, after the Daily Wire signed a deal with Twitter to stream the film for free to kick off Pride Month, a faction of dedicated censors within Twitter, many of them holdovers from the pre-Musk era, we can assume, decided to revolt. They went back on the agreement. They told us the film was hate speech because for the very simple reason that it contained speech they hated. And whatever it took, these activists...
Oh, if something has a speech you hate, then that is hate speech?
Inside Twitter decided the last possible minute that you wouldn't be allowed to see any of it. And you know that whole story by now. Now, I say activists, but these people are more like zealots. The ideology is what matters to them, nothing else. And that's why several of these rogue Twitter employees decided to throw away their jobs in order to shut down What is a Woman. That's how dedicated they are to the cult of gender ideology. Even after Elon Musk publicly told the Daily Wire CEO Jeremy Boring that the film would run without any censorship, these activists went ahead and throttled it anyway the moment it went live on Twitter on the night of June 1st. And as you know, no one could like or retweet it. It had a label saying it contained hateful conduct. It looked for a while as if somehow this pro-censorship faction within Twitter had staged some kind of coup. They had defied Twitter's owner. And incredibly, at first, it seemed they had gotten what they wanted. But then Elon Musk stepped in, heads rolled, various firings and resignations were reported, and the film was freed from the censorship shackles. But once the rest of America, the sane ones anyway, had the opportunity to see the film without any intervention from a small number of gender studies majors in Silicon Valley, it became obvious why the censors were so desperate to shut us down to begin with. They were right in a certain way. Not right to do what they did, not right about the things they believed, but right to be afraid of the film and the effect it would have on their agenda. Because what happened next was truly historic. It turns out a lot of people wanted to watch the film. In fact, a lot
of people wanted to see it.
More people wanted to watch What is a Woman than any other documentary in the last several years. When we tweeted out the film, it got more than 170 million views. Now, for perspective, more people watched What is a Woman than saw Anderson Cooper all week on CNN, or watched the Oscars, or Joe Biden's State of the Union address in 2023, combined. The film trended worldwide all weekend with hundreds of thousands of people talking about it at all hours. For the second Pride Month in a row, this is our second one in a row, What is a Woman was the #1 documentary on Rotten Tomatoes. And in fact, right now is the #1 streaming film on the entire site. So just to restate, this is a documentary that came out a year ago, and it instantly went to #1. Again, whatever you think of the film, based on the data, there's no question it's one of the most watched documentaries of the past decade. It's also one of the most impactful because it's led directly to laws that have been passed all over the country, outlawing child mutilation, other crimes against humanity. In fact,
he's doing a very good job.
It's clear that now we can say What is a Woman is one of the most widely viewed and influential documentaries, not just of the past several years or of the decade, but of all time. And I'm biased in that assessment, of course, but all of the available metrics back it up.
I do agree.
What an unmitigated disaster for the forces of censorship and of evil. The news organizations and big tech oligarchs who, for years, could have censored this film, and would have censored it in this case as well, were instead forced to watch on the sidelines as all of this unfolded, watching helplessly. Millions of Americans could see the extent to which they're being lied to. The experts in medicine and academia that the media throws in our faces, who tell us that gender ideology is settled science, actually have no idea what they're talking about. They're clowns and liars and frauds. Small children could make better arguments than they do.
You're right.
And they've all been exposed as liars, and not about some trivial topic either. They've been covering for an ideology that condones the forcible castration and mutilation of children. And there's no hiding that now. But of course, they're going to try to hide it anyway. Despite its popularity, right now the film still has not been reviewed by a single corporate media outlet. Instead, they spent the weekend and the past week lying about it. Here's how CNN covered everything that's happened. Listen to this.
Yeah, let's see him.
Meantime, Twitter's head of trust and safety telling Reuters that she has resigned from the social media company. Ella Irwin, who was in charge of content moderation, stepped down the same day that Twitter blocked and then unblocked access to an anti-trans documentary. Billionaire Elon Musk has faced criticism for lax protections against potentially harmful content.
That man doesn't care anymore.
Since he took over back in October.
Now, notice a couple of things about that clip. The first is that, like Voldemort, you can't actually say the name of the movie. I think that's correct. I don't usually use Harry Potter references, but anyway. So instead of What is a Woman, it's an anti-trans documentary that shall not be named under any circumstance. Merely saying the words What is a Woman is violence. And what's amusing about calling the film an anti-trans documentary is that, again, the whole documentary is about giving trans activists the floor, letting them speak. We didn't interrupt them or edit anything out of context. So if What is a Woman is an anti-trans documentary, as CNN says, all that means is that gender ideology is so incoherent and so corrupt that anyone who spends any time listening to pro-trans activists will inevitably come away with anti-trans sentiments. That seems to be what CNN is saying. Now, CNN doesn't realize they're saying that, of course, because none of them have watched the film or know what they're talking about. But that's the big takeaway from that segment. Spend 10 minutes with a doctor who performs gender-affirming surgeries, quote-unquote gender-affirming surgeries, or a college professor who lectures on gender, and you'll come away anti-trans, apparently. That's what CNN is saying. And that might not be a bad assessment from CNN, actually. The other thing to notice about that clip is the implication that the film contains potentially harmful content. Now, nowhere in that segment did CNN explain what's potentially harmful about letting trans activists box themselves into a corner and then run away screaming when asked a simple question. Maybe what CNN means is that the content of the film is harmful to gender ideology, which it certainly is. If that's the case, then again, we thank CNN for the endorsement. Now, to be clear, I'm not just picking on CNN here. That would be a waste of time because, as Elon Musk pointed out in response to that segment, nobody watches them anyway. So you should know that the rest of the media did the same thing.
Somebody said that to me yesterday. He said nobody watches CNN or BBC or even Fox anymore.
They attacked the film without even mentioning the title of it or what it's about. NBC News, for example, ran this headline, quote, Musk's response to an anti-trans video sparks 24 hours of chaos at Twitter.
Chaos?
A conservative pressure movement built against Twitter CEO resulted in high-level departures from the company. Now, you couldn't write a less factually accurate summary of what happened over the past week if you tried. They can't even bring themselves to call it a film. Instead, one of the most widely viewed documentaries ever is just a video, an anti-trans video. What's remarkable about this is that millions of people are seeing the fake narrative machine spin up in real time. What happened on Twitter with What is a Woman was not a secret. Everyone could see it happen. And yet the media is lying about it as if this is Russiagate all over again. They're acting like they have some kind of insider knowledge and they can fool people, but they can't.
Not anymore.
Again, they're panicking, and more importantly, it's obvious.
People are willing to speak up now.
This is how these people start to lose power because they lose their grip, their influence, the monopoly they have over people's minds. The closest the NBC News article comes to engaging with the content of the film is to say that it misgenders trans people. Quoting from NBC, it says, quote, misgendering trans people had been restricted on the platform since 2018, but under Musk, the company quietly repealed that rule. Misgendering trans people using pronouns other than what someone prefers is a common way to bully trans people. What NBC doesn't mention is that the alleged misgendering they're talking about, again, is a father saying that his 14-year-old girl is his daughter. They're saying that this father was bullying his own 14-year-old daughter, bullying her because he objected when doctors injected her with cross-sex hormones that sterilized her. And then when the Canadian government arrested this father and fined him $30,000, and when the Canadian media destroyed his life, according to NBC, he wasn't being bullied. Instead, his daughter was being bullied. That's what they're saying. Now, they can't write that explicitly because it's just so awful and insane. So they lie about it. In the not too distant past, private citizens used to be largely that, private. What changed? Well, the internet changed. Think about everything you've ever searched for,
Express
watched, or
VPN.
tweeted on the internet. Now imagine all of that data being crawled through, collected, and aggregated by third parties into permanent public records. To keep my data private when I go online, I use Express. Article is that it contains this line, which belongs in some kind of museum or something. Quote, Musk's views on trans rights put him out of sync with many other Silicon Valley billionaires. Okay, this is how shameless corporate media propaganda is now. They come right.
But the thing is, though, why are they doing all these things? If you don't want to report the right information, just don't report it. Like, if you don't want to speak about something, just don't speak about it. Ignore the whole thing. Why get involved and choose to alter the message? It just feels weird.
Right out and condemn you if you disagree with many other Silicon Valley billionaires, as if that's obviously a bad thing to do. Now, I'm old enough to remember when the left used to pretend to be critics of the evil billionaire class. Now they use that group as a moral measuring stick for the rest of us. It used to be billionaires are evil. Now it's agree with all the billionaires or you're evil. Everywhere you look this weekend, there was an article like this, clearly written by someone who hadn't seen the film, but was told to write about it. Take Business Insider, for example. Unlike NBC or CNN, Business Insider actually did use the name of the film, so at least there's that. But they obviously haven't seen it either. They wrote that the film, quote, urges intolerance of trans people. Of course, they don't provide a single quote in which anyone in the documentary urges intolerance of trans people. That's because it didn't happen. And now everyone knows that because everyone could see it for themselves. The New Republic ran a similarly embarrassing piece, except to try and differentiate themselves a bit, they opted to attack Elon Musk personally. They reported that he was, quote, disowned by his trans daughter. And the article went on to lament that Musk had decided to, quote, punch down against transgender people.
That's how far they're willing to go.
Is anyone convinced by this anymore? I mean, it's hard to believe at this point. The activists who are urging intolerance are on the other side. They're doing it right out in the open. They aren't dog whistling or whatever. They're coming out and saying it. And for them, when they call for intolerance against their enemies, they don't mean just like say mean things about them. They mean kill them. For the latest example, as journalist Chris Brunet reported on his Substack this weekend, a Brown University PhD student calling himself Sarah Celeste Griffith has for apparently many months been publicly urging people to come to my home and kill me. Why? Well, presumably because Sarah Celeste Griffith is a man who claims to be a woman, and he is so desperate
That's criminal.
to maintain this delusion that he wants anyone who tells the truth to be killed. Now, I've been saying this for a long time because it's true. Trans activists would happily murder you and your whole family for the sake of feeling more affirmed. Or at a minimum, they'll happily encourage someone else to go do it. Brown University is aware that this person has been threatening me.
Done nothing about
But
it.
they haven't done anything about it, as we expect. And by the way, if you'd like to reach out to the president of the university to ask why they're allowing this kind of behavior, why one of their PhD students is publicly calling for the execution of someone they disagree with on social media, and you want to know why they would allow this at Brown University, well, you can contact the president of the university, Christina Paxson, at 401-863-2234, or you can email
Put the contacts right there.
president@brown.edu.
Yeah, I should screen munch that depending on how I feel. Let me take a picture. In case I just feel some kind of way, I might just text them and be like, hey, what's up? Do something about this. Yeah, I take a picture too. See, I'm not even joking. I'm serious. Let me see how I feel later in the day. You know, shoot them a message.
If you want to give your feedback, then that's the way that you do it. I'm sure that as always, I'm sure she'd be very happy to hear it. Now, when you contact, you might want to ask her why they're protecting Sarah Celeste Griffith and ignoring these terroristic threats. Though, we already know the answer. They're doing it for the same reason Joe Biden and Kamala Harris ignore every instance of trans terrorism, including the murder of children. They're ignoring us for the same reason there are pride flags all over Rockefeller Center right now. The reason they think they can ignore us is that criticizing the cult of gender ideology is not, in fact, punching down, and they know that. It is standing up to the most powerful forces in our country, which insist that you lie about the most fundamental facts of life. They want you to believe men can get pregnant, and if you disagree, they try to crush you. They think they have all the power, but they don't have all of it. They have a lot of it, but they don't have all of it, not anymore. So they have to resort to propaganda that's getting increasingly desperate. Here's another example. The Huffington Post cut right to the chase in their article about What is a Woman and the Twitter controversy. And their headline was, Elon Musk is a transphobe. What's their evidence for that? Here it is, quote, gender-affirming healthcare takes place in a professional environment. That's what they say. And therefore, according to the Huffington Post, don't you dare ask questions about hospitals that castrate children. It's happening in a nice and professional environment. And if you do ask questions about it, you're afraid of trans people.
You see, this is just an indication that good people that are willing to stand up against evil, should actually do it. One thing I notice about good people is they don't like to talk. They don't like to speak up. They like to be calm. They think just being by themselves and not getting involved is a measure of being good. But that's not being good. Good is loving. And love also could be an action. It could be active. Love is not always passive. So if you see all these things and you just decide to be quiet, it's not right. Speak up. Somebody comes to wherever you're seated at, whether it be a small gathering or a gathering of 3 people, and then they say some things that don't make sense. Look at them and say, no, I do not agree with you. Like, don't always take anything that comes your way. If you're a good person and you have a good heart, you think whatever agenda is being pushed on you is evil, speak up regardless of the situation. Yeah.
The reality is that these media outlets, for once, are the ones who are afraid. They're flailing around trying to attack a film they clearly haven't seen and certainly don't want you to see. And they're doing that because they know they're losing ground. The revolt against trans ideology is gaining steam more and more each day. Texas just became the largest state to criminalize child mutilation, or gender-affirming care, as the media puts it. That happened just last week. 18 other states have signed similar legislation, many of them in just the past year. Meanwhile, corporations are starting to run scared from Pride Month. There are a bunch that didn't even switch their Twitter logos over to the little rainbow colors this year, like they have in years past.
Yeah.
As Newsweek just reported, quote, the North Face, Lego, and Miller Lite carried supportive messages on June 1st, 2022, but did not do so this year. Other brands such as Target, Bud Light, and Adidas have yet to post, despite doing so later in June last year. The account for Xbox briefly had a Pride logo that they put up on their Twitter account before getting rid of it a few days into Pride Month. The Navy did the same thing. They made their background image on Twitter and Instagram a fighter jet streaking across the sky with Pride colors in its wake. Then they got dogpiled because the job of the military is to defend us from foreign enemies, not to promote fetishes and the sexual mutilation of children. And the people are comfortable saying that out loud now. So very quickly, the Navy changed their background image back. Now, these might seem like small victories, but they are manifestations of a larger and more significant trend. The media knows this, the left knows this, which is why they're panicking. A lot of people thought that the left had won the cultural argument when it comes to trans and LGBT stuff. That was the assumption many people made, that this is lost, they won, there's no undoing it. But the victory was an illusion, like a mirage in the desert. When you get closer and you get a closer look, you see it for the fraud that it is.
Right.
They win, quote unquote, by preventing people from looking at these issues honestly or thinking about them clearly or talking about them at all. This is also one of the reasons why libs of TikTok became one of their most hated enemies. She just gave people an honest look at their agenda, which is what they fear most. Once people start to see this for what it is, and they feel empowered to talk about it, things start to change rapidly. And right now they are. Thanks for checking out this video. If you liked...
Okay, that was a very long one, but also it's important that we see videos like that. And I like what he's doing. He's doing a very good job, When I came to North America in 2018, this thing was kind of like, it was new to me. Like, we don't see a lot of these things in Africa. It was very new to me. And it felt at that point like this was totally accepted and this was the norm. So seeing people speak against this is kind of like new to me also. It's like, oh, so you people did not accept this. Then why did you keep quiet all along? Because me, I'm Nigerian. If something doesn't seem right, I speak up. I just naturally, it's like a reflex action. Like, I just speak up. So people are accepting this, and yeah, I like that. Finally, Americans are beginning to speak up against things that you know, they don't like. You guys should speak up more. You should take this traits from Nigerians, and I think Russians act the same way. Like, if you have something you need to speak up that you don't like, just say it. You know, say it. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be too nice all the time. Just be honest. Anyways, that's the end of this video. Let me know your thoughts on it. If you want us to check out another one by Matt Walsh, talk to me in the comment section. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and also like the video. I'll see you on the next one. Have a wonderful day. Peace.